Welcome, everybody. Good to have you all with us on the podcast today. Fellas, y'all doing well?
Yes.
Everything good?
Doing good.
Feeling
Doing good.
chipper today.
Good.
I can't
Good.
say the same for Greg.
I'm not chipper today.
Greg is not chipper today. All right. Well, we had fun over the weekend. Genesis 2, verses 19 and 20. Full house at 10:15. My goodness, that is the biggest single attendance we've ever had in one service.
Was it? Did we
Wasn't
check?
it?
Did we,
It is indeed, especially when you include all of the people that were on campus kind of doing some different math today. Yeah, and it was quite a large.
The 10:15 specifically was bigger than it was at Easter this year.
That is accurate.
I think with
No,
Mother's
we did
Day.
have 4 on Easter Sunday.
We did.
Yeah,
So
we had
so
to
it
spread
was-
them
as
out.
far as having
was-
one
it's not
It
service.
wasn't exactly 10:15.
It's not exactly
that's
one
fair.
to
No.
one,
But-
but yes,
But it was bigger
The
than
number
any
of
those.
people that were sitting in seats in the room
It's the most we've ever
is the
had.
most we've had
Yeah,
sitting
and
in
it
the
felt
seats
like it.
in the room.
Some days,
Felt
and this
like it
happened
too.
to me at 10:15. People, I was shaking hands, a lot of hands out front, and my hand got sore. It really did. My hand got sore from shaking hands.
Wow.
And at the 10:15, they just keep coming and keep coming and keep coming.
Yeah.
And I was out there in the front thinking, I'm afraid to go in because I don't know what I'll see. Will I see 80 people standing and having to leave? Are people going to come back out? How many people can go in that door?
We were working hard.
It's kind of like
finding
the
people
circus
seats.
where you got all the clowns packing into a
Yes.
car.
Yeah.
Not to call our people
Maybe
clowns.
not a good analogy.
Probably
but
not. Probably
No,
not.
just kidding.
But it's just all the people going in, and you're like, how many people can fit in there? I
No,
expect to see
it's
the
like,
walls bulging.
first service, I remember feeling like, oh, this feels like kind of like normal first service,
And it was.
And then it's like, but then you know, like, oh boy,
Here
something
they
is
are.
coming
Here they
because
are.
it's Mother's Day is always probably second biggest day of the year, right? Third, it's
Yep.
what Easter,
Christmas.
Easter, Christmas Eve.
Christmas Eve.
Yep.
Hey, Mother's Day always feels more full to me than Christmas, but neither here nor there.
And our
But-
parking lot,
sorry to
man,
burst
it,
your
yeah,
the parking lot
doesn't hurt my
was
feelings that bad.
was utilized yesterday. We got all that new parking now, and it doesn't.
The third tier was 3/4 of the way full.
Yeah.
3 out of 4 tiers. 2 tiers full.
Two
the
tiers
third
were
tier,
full.
3/4.
Yes.
Hey,
So we had a
just
quarter
think we got
and
another.
the little
we
tier
got a
left.
quarter left.
We did have a quarter left.
That's the glass half full approach.
That 10:15 service, and maybe they didn't tune in to hear about our service problem, but that's as many people as we can have on this campus at one time. It can't get bigger.
Yeah,
than
that was,
We
that was
just
kind
don't
of.
have room.
That was
So
kind of
if
the
you're out
first.
there and you attend 10:15, we love you, and we hope
Thanks for
all,
dealing with it.
If all you can come to is the 10:15, then great, come for the 10:15. But if by chance you're willing to shift,
so inclined.
you could do us a solid by coming on a Thursday or
All
one
that's
of the
going to
two
get better
after.
in the fall when we do the
Yeah, that's true.
multi-site.
Yes.
We're going to solve a lot of these problems, which we're excited about. Anyway, we're in verses 19 and 20. What an interesting verse. I'm really glad we slowed down in this passage and just went deeper.
hmm
This passage is often preached as one sermon, the whole thing.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
I really felt going into it, let's just stay here. Let's see what God would say to us of digging deep here. So we dug into some cool stuff yesterday.
Yeah, definitely. And kind of we talked about doing kind of a big question for each one of these episodes, and trying to answer a different thing that
Yeah.
happened. So for last week, it was kind of like a bunch of sub questions of like, why did the creation of man happen the way it did? Why did God start with Adam first? Why didn't we just start with 2 people? Why didn't he start with more than 2 people? So that was last week's, and I thought we did a good job answering that. And then for this week, we kind of honed in a little bit on Adam's need for a partner and, God showing him that. But the big question was ultimately, why was the method that God chose to reveal this kind of a zoology?
Yeah.
Why did Adam name all the animals? Why did God think that was a good thing for him to do? You pointed out in the message that it was kind of the only thing God hadn't named thus far. Everything else he created and gave a name for. Why did God feel the need to, everything I'm going to name except for the animals, I'm going to leave that to Adam? What was the greater purpose in that?
Yeah, there's 2 things God did in preparation, and you really get surprised by this verse. If you were just reading one verse at a time and didn't know the story, you get surprised because at the end of verse 18, he's like, I'll make a helper exactly right for him. So it's like, next verse,
Yeah.
God should start making the helper in my mind. God didn't do that. He started working on Adam, And he did two things to him. We'll talk about the second one this coming week. But the two things is he gave him a job to do, and then he put him to sleep. Yeah. And like did surgery on him. That's what we're going to talk about this upcoming week. But first thing he did, he gives him a job to do to prepare him for his wife soon to come. And the job was to stand and watch all the animals come to him and classify all of them. So Adam's like a PhD times 10 in zoology. He knows all the animals now. He had a unique relationship with the animals that we don't have today because of the fallen world and sin. But Adam actually classified all of them and grouped them into categories. He took authority over them. He was assigning the animals their identity and their role, I believe, on planet Earth. So it's a very interesting thing that God had him to do. And the amazing thing to me about how God prepared Adam is God was working to place the right desires in Adam's heart to prepare him for the right outcome. You know, there's a verse in Philippians I was thinking about this morning. It says that God works in us both to will and to do for his good pleasure. That God actually works in us, and this is really powerful. He's not just about getting us to do the right things. He actually works in us to want to do the right things. So God actually works in our hearts to prepare the desire and place the desire in our hearts for the right things, you know. And that's what he was doing with Adam, at least part of it. We said yesterday two big things that Adam took away, and y'all might have some more. There's certainly not, I didn't exhaust this subject. Two things that I figure that Adam came to a conclusion on was, first of all, I'm not an animal. I see all these animals, and there's nobody here for me in this group. I've seen everything living on earth, and I've come to the end of God's creation, and there's nothing. And the second conclusion that would lead to is I really need somebody. I need my partner. All these animals I see here, there's a Mr. and a Mrs. and all of them, and I'm a Mr. and I don't have my Mrs., you know.
Right.
So I think Adam landed on those two things, and I think he had to see both of those things to be able to receive what God created for him.
You think that order right there is important, kind of the way that that's done? He kind of looks around and says, okay, there's not somebody here for me. I'm not an animal. And then it is the fact I need somebody. I wasn't meant to be alone here. Do you think that order is important? And the reason that I'm asking is because I hear from different singles at different point in time. It's like I can't find anybody. I want somebody, and then the flip side of it is that I can't find anybody. There's nobody really here for me. I'm just curious. I'm not necessarily this has to be the right answer, or there is a right answer. I'm just curious if you think that order is important there.
Are you saying that he found out he wasn't an animal first?
Yeah. It's kind of like the way they did that first is like I'm not an animal. But I recognize that everybody, all these other animals have somebody, and I don't. That order, just kind of the way that order goes. Do you think that's important?
I don't know. I didn't really think about the order of it in context of the sermon. As I prepared it, they just struck me as two conclusions that I think Adam obviously would have come to. I don't know if the order would... nothing jumps out at me that says the order is important to that. Does it you? Tell
Not necessarily. I'm just curious. I'm just kind of thinking about the recognition of recognizing that I have a need, and then also kind of drawing the conclusion that I'm not seeing somebody for me kind of deal. I'm pursuing this and not necessarily finding the one that I'm looking for.
Right. Yeah. If just imagine, if you will, Adam's, when he comes to the end of all of God's living creatures and he still hasn't found one.
Yeah.
What would that have been? You try to put yourself in Adam's shoes. Is he's here with all these animals. He's never seen a woman before.
Right.
He doesn't know. He's never seen all these animals before. This is new, and God just basically says every creature on earth is going to come to you and you give them names, and he sees them all, and none of them look like him. None of them are his counterpart, and he can see that with his eyes. He can see, I have authority over these creatures. I have authority over these animals because God has established it as such. But none of them match me. None of them are my counterpart. Imagine the hopelessness he would have come to when God said, okay, that's it. I mean, I think Adam reached that point of saying, I can't find anybody.
trying to rationalize that too with the previous verse, that God said, I'm going to make you, give you a helper that's just right for him, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then trying to rationalize that God has said that he's going to do this, and yet I can't find that individual. I don't see that individual.
I don't know that God said that to Adam,
Right.
It's like God says it. I wonder if Adam knew God's intent there, if God, verse 18, he said, I will make a helper exactly fitted for him. We don't know that Adam heard that necessarily. Possibly he did.
Right.
Possibly he could. It's tough with people. I hear that kind of thing all the time, though. I've tried this relationship and it didn't work out, this relationship, and we've all had that, I was in a situation I alluded to yesterday. I just said it. There was a couple of relationships that I had in college, that I really thought I loved this person and really felt that and everything. And through just being human and stupid, neither one of those worked out, and I don't blame anybody but me for that. But, you get to the point of thinking there's just nobody out here for me. And I hear people say it all the time. I've been hurt. I just give up on all this. There's nobody. It's so interesting to me that God brought Adam to the absolute end. I mean, he knew there was nobody for him, and there truly was nobody for him. God had to create the somebody for him, but God did. God did provide that, and he brings Eve to Adam next week. It's really going to be cool to see, but Adam reached a point of there's nobody here. And the only thing that could happen is for God to specially create somebody for him. And I think that's probably what Adam had to see. Adam had to see there's nobody here, but God made this person for me.
Yeah, totally. And we also, I think the whole thing is we don't know how much Adam was expressing needs or wants for a partner before this as well. The timing of everything isn't exactly just perfectly laid out for us, but I think it's really likely that the majority of the time he was experiencing this kind of desire was probably at the same time while he was naming the animals. I have to feel like that was part of the bigger purpose.
Makes sense to me.
Of just I don't know. It's tough to say. It's conjecture, but I feel like it's more likely that, he wasn't even necessarily thinking about partnership and things like that until he began naming the animals.
Right.
And then that ultimately is what causes him to recognize that everything is, in a partnership except him, and he's by himself.
Right.
So I don't know that it was, and you never know, but I don't know that it was the other way around where he wants a partner, knows God's going to make him one, and then has to name the animals. I feel like it's probably more likely that he just began doing his task of naming the animals, which would have taken a very long time, by the way. But and then
you would think
we have no idea how long that would have taken. And you talk, I mean, there's a million different things that could have taken place there, But
I think one of the critical things to understand, though, is that through this, God was preparing his heart to want the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not something that happens overnight.
Yeah,
I mean, God can change our hearts, and there's certain things he can do in an instant. But the vast majority of the change that's taken place in my life and other people that I know, God worked on them and reshaped their desires towards what was good for them and what was best for them.
Mm-hmm.
Very natural to desire things that are bad for you. I've found in my life, and when I say natural, I just mean according to the sinful nature that is upon us, that fell on us through Adam's sin. It's so easy to want the wrong things. It's like candy. It's so easy to go on a candy bar because it's sugar. It's like addictive. It grabs you. It holds you. It calls to you.
QT's calling right now.
Well, it could, yeah. QT could call right now. It does. I've found in my life, though, that, and I've been on the fitness diet bandwagon off and on several times, as many of us have. When you start doing the right thing, your tastes and your desires start to change, and you break through from that. You break away from that instant gratification, that sugar, and you actually start craving the good things. It's amazing to me how God used this task to shape Adam's heart and guide him toward the ultimate fulfillment. And so, just imagine first time he saw a woman. I mean, it's like, wow, wowza. We're going to talk about this coming week, because it's like yeah, God had that for me all along.
Right.
I think some people out there are, and this ties into what you were saying with getting a task to kind of prepare your heart. Some people out there are so desperate for a relationship that if they were given one immediately, they would ruin it immediately, because they're just not in the right mindset to enter a relationship with another person. And that's dating, marriage, whatever. I think about some of the people I've talked to that are just so wrapped up in that of like, it's their whole world that they can't find a girlfriend or a boyfriend or whatever. And if they were instantly snapped fingers and you got one, you would probably mishandle it at that moment. So don't discredit the waiting period and the jobs you have to do before that happens in preparation. I think God's using all of that to prepare you.
I think the best thing someone can do that's looking for a relationship is recognize that as a God-given desire.
Mm-hmm.
If that is a God-given desire, I said this yesterday, God will fulfill that need in His time and in His way. Give that need to God and surrender it to Him, because as you tightly cling to that and get desperate for it, you tend to mess it up. You tend to get involved in it so much. You give that need to God and you say, Father, I just surrender this to you. And then you get up and you go about God's business for your life. You do what He tells you to do. I'm not saying you sit at home and do nothing. Get out there, look, work, and you just trust God that as you do His will, He will guide your steps to where the path crosses with the right person. And I told my own story this weekend. I could tell story after story after story. I've heard people in ministry who are just in life came to the point of just saying, okay, God, I surrender this to you. I'm just going to do your will. And as they did, God brought them together with exactly the right person. Because you're going to find the right person when they're on God's will, the path to God's will for their life, and you are too, and God brings you together. You're going to find the wrong person when you're in a path to destruction, and they are as well.
Right.
You know, if you're hanging out somewhere getting drunk, looking for a hookup, you're going to find people who are going to take you down. Now, everybody has a testimony. I've heard people sometimes have a testimony of meeting somebody that way, and God saved it, and I'm so glad God saved it. But there's also people who've, fallen off something and miraculously been saved, and you don't want to take that dive if you can help it.
Love being able to answer the question there. What's the main point here? What's the main focus? Is my main focus that I'm just trying to pursue to get a relationship, or is my main purpose in my life right now to honor God? And what is it that God's asked me to do right now? And if I can answer that question honestly and try to make the main focus of my life to honor Him and to follow the path that He's got for me, as you said, man, He'll line up everything else. It may not be in my timing. It may not be with what I want, and I think there's that fallacy out there too that if you're not dating or engaged by this certain age right here, or you're not married by this certain age, or you hadn't had kids by this certain age, then you've kind of missed out on what you're supposed to be doing. There's no regulation, there's no rule of what that's supposed to happen there. We just bought into this lie that's there.
Mm-hmm.
We said it yesterday again. It's a triangle: God, man, and woman. And if you surrender that need to God and pursue Him, you're making a decision that's going to be healthy after you get married. Because after you get married, you can't look solely to the other one as your source of strength and life. You still both got to be looking to God. You find two people who are just desperate for a relationship, throw them together, and God not being at the center of it, they wear each other out because they're dependent on their spouse to be what only God can be. So it's a good relationship habit just to surrender that to God and leave it there and keep following Jesus even after you're married. I mean, I've been married, 31 years will be soon. And we've had to continually just say, we're just going to follow Jesus, and Jesus is going to keep us close to each other.
Yep.
So, well, thanks, guys. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We'll see y'all next week. We'll have another good time.
We will.
Bye.